Well, hello there and welcome. Today I'm going to read an article in Time magazine that what no one could have predicted. Chatbots, if you use them, it actually makes you dumber in your profession. And, well, before I start, let me just point out that we have a course coming up on health and virtue, a journey to well-being with Plato and Aristotle, which begins, by the way, exactly in 1 week. And I think it's striking that health is something we really haven't thought about uh, in a in any good way in modernity. Now we can do a lot, and we can keep people alive, and we can also kill people very efficiently. Suicide pots in Switzerland, etc. But what health is and how health relates to virtue doesn't ever come up. And that's what we are going to ponder. And also, well, we want to really, with this course, make sure that we regain our senses again for health. So, if you have any questions, by the way, then leave a super chat and I'll get to your question at the end. If you have a comment, same. So this is an article that you can find on Time magazine. It's not paywalled. New study suggests using AI made doctors less skilled at spotting cancer. Now, I'm old enough to remember when about 2 weeks ago, the current sitting president of the United States had the CEO of ChatGPT, of OpenAI, and I think also of Oracle in the Oval Office, or one of the offices in the White House at least, to give a press conference on how they're going to solve cancer. Because chatbots are really great at spotting cancer. Now, I'm old and old school, and it should come as absolutely no surprise that AI will make the world a lot dumber and a lot more chaotic. And this, what I find striking, I'm going to read this, but what I find really striking is how extremely open human beings apparently already are towards using these quote unquote technologies without ever for a second even reflecting upon what they are, that they might actually go wrong. You have to wonder why it is that we assume that AI just knows best and knows better than we could ever know. I mean, this should come if you have your senses together still, which, if you're still more or less a reasonable human being, then this should come as no surprise. Health practitioners, and by the way, I don't think that AI will solve cancer because cancer is the disease of modernity. If you want to, quote unquote, solve cancer, you have to overcome everything to do with modernity. And again, we have a course starting. I should say this now again. If you have a question, by the way, leave a super chat or a comment, and I'll read them at the end. We have a course coming up on health and virtue. One of the things that is striking, and Thomas Chocken, who's going to teach the course, is pointing this out, is that we've separated health and virtue entirely. Okay. So what AI does is generate an average of everything, an average of anything, of any pattern, of anything that's ever been written, etc. And averages out. It produces mediocrity. Anyway, so here we are. All right. usually have a ad blocker, but it doesn't work, it seems. Anyways, health practitioners, companies, and others, very precise writing, have for years hailed the potential benefits of AI in medicine, from improving medical imaging to outperforming doctors at diagnostic assessments. Yes, it's always about outperforming. We need to outperform the obsolete human being. I mean, the logic of the AI crowd is actually, why don't you just let everyone get cancer? Wouldn't that solve your problem for you? The obsolescence of the human being. I mean, cancer is on your side, AI people. So, anyways, let's go on. So it's outperforming, right? With the important term is outperforming. Outperforming what? Because the speed is so much faster. They're so much more efficient at what? At recognize at diagnosing. What is if you go to a psychiatrist, is the reason why you go to see a therapist really to have a diagnosis? Is that the point? Is the point to go see a doctor really to get a diagnosis? I mean, is this the only reason we have medicine? Is to have perfect diagnosis? The transformative technology has even been predicted by AI enthusiasts to one day, don't split your infinitives, one day to help find a cure to cancer. I think basically what they do is they use these promises of curing cancer and uploading yourself to the cloud and whatever else to justify the AI surveillance state, which is what this is really about. Yeah. Anyways, a new study has found that doctors who regularly used AI actually became less skilled within months. Who could have seen that coming? I could have never seen that coming. Could you? The study, which was published on Wednesday in the Lancet Gastroenterology and Hepatology journal, found that over the course of 6 months, clinicians became over reliant on AI recommendations and became themselves less motivated, less focused, and less responsible when making cognitive decisions without AI assistance. Oh, so maybe it actually is helping them in some way. You don't. You maybe you might quote unquote cure cancer, but you made everyone else so dumb in the process that you have at the end no more health professionals left, and you don't need them anymore. It's the latest study to demonstrate potential adverse outcomes on AI users. An earlier study by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology found that ChatGPT eroded critical thinking skills. I wonder, why do we need studies for this? I genuinely wonder how much how little sense people seem to have anymore. How much we've apparently lost it. They need a study to show you that by talking to a chatbot, you begin to lose your main thinking. I mean, critical thinking skills. I would never use that term, but just use that term for now. How the study was conducted, yeah, that's really important. Researchers across various European institutions conducted an observational study surveying 4 endoscopy centers in Poland that participated in the AI in colonoscopy for cancer prevention. Except it always has to have this. These labels. Anyways, the study was funded by the European Commission and Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. As part of the trial, the centers had introduced AI tools for the detection of polyps growths that can be benign or cancerous in late 2021. I'm also surprised to learn, to be honest, that this all happens always all at once, doesn't it? So ChatGPT is made public at the end of, wasn't it 2022? And just a year prior, other such tools were already used in, for example, in this particular center, and that's certainly not the only one. So I wonder always how this happens. Who decides this, and how does this start? And again, why? Why this over reliance on such tools? Why this belief in this for precision and and objectivity? Researchers compared the quality of colonoscopy conducted 3 months before and 3 months after AI was implemented. Colonoscopies were conducted either with or without AI assistance at random. Of those conducted without AI assistance, 795 were conducted before regular AI use was implemented, and 648 were conducted after the AI tools were introduced. What the study found: 3 months before AI was introduced, the adenoma detection rate was around 28%. 3 months after AI was introduced, the rate dropped to 22% when clinicians were unassisted by AI. ADR is a commonly used quality indicator. Did you see the irony of all of this? So you you already have frameworks in place that ensure that in a streamlined, super efficient manner, as those frameworks guarantee basically that there's no there's no penny wasted, no second wasted on misdiagnosing anyone, because the faster you um, you diagnose, the better. Well, the higher your profit margin. Even if it's still a public hospital, you'd be surprised, all you Americans who believe that we have free healthcare in Europe. We don't. That hospitals are quasi privatized in Germany, for example. Not so much in Italy, perhaps, but there's definitely places where, even if they're publicly backed, they have very tight calculations that they have to go by, which often leads to people being released from hospital, even though they're still visibly, for example, can't walk or couldn't even care for themselves because the money has been spent. So it's very similar to America. It's just that you can't pay your way if you have it in Germany as easily as you could perhaps in the States. Okay, so an already pre-existing framework is now weaponized by AI, is now energized by AI. So the assumption is basically AI is just the next logical step. You've already made it so that framework upon framework leads to a safe diagnosis, which then can be treated by or not treated if it's outside the scope of what the hospital wants to treat you for. So that's already perfect. Let's say made perfectly efficient. So AI obviously is already just so-called AI is just the next logical step, increasing the speed, quote unquote, outperforming doctors at what? Not at healing patients or seeing the patient, the one who is suffering. No. Outperforming at what? Outperforming at finding the diagnosis, and then the pre-formatted and let's say pre-justified treatment for something, for a certain disease or condition, that then you because that makes sure that the bottom line, as they say in business, is never harmed. So, anyways, ADR is a commonly used quality indicator for colonoscopies and represents it's. I mean, if you read this with a philosophical lens on, it represents the proportion. It represents. Okay, so this is obviously then a mirroring of the idea of the perfect proportion an image of it, a copy of it in this mere ephemeral realm in which we are, where the phenomena don't show anything of themselves. No, what has to be represented is the golden proportion of screening colonoscopies performed. So you see what's happening here is that there's a universalization process occurring from data, which if you know anything, if you are philosophical, which you may or may not be, Hume once and for all proved that empiricism is impossible. You will always just run after data. And data, which they use to predict the future, data are a shard of the past. That's what data are. They are just shards of the past that have no inherent order to them. So called quote unquote AI, technocracy in general, comes in from the outside and tries to establish order where there isn't order, with categories that apparently just drop from the sky. So, anyways, the proportion of screening. So you see, it's very metaphysical language once you start seeing what's going on. It's pseudo metaphysics. So it represents a proportion of screening colonoscopies performed by a physician that detect at least one histologically confirmed colorectal adenoma or adenocarcinoma, if that's correctly pronounced. I don't know. Adenomas are precancerous growths, and a higher AGR is associated with a lower risk of colorectal cancer. The study found that AI did help endoscopists with detection when used, but once the assistance was removed, clinicians were worse at detection. Now, you see, this sort of study is basically not done, which is it's a contracted study. If you know anything about academia, this is contracted. Yeah. So what this is going to argue for is that you need more AI, you need more chatbots to help or outperform doctors. That's the intended outcome of such a study. These are pre-intended outcomes. They're not it's not random. It's not let's just see what happens. This is what we want, and this is how you're going to conduct the study so that we find what we want to find, which is we need more such quote unquote AI tools to ensure that detection is improved, even if that means, or basically that's just not just a side effect. I think that's what's really is what they want, even if that means that on their own the experts will no longer be able to detect anything. And I wonder how long you need the quote unquote human element in this still in this eerie process to have a backstop of sorts, to have someone to not to blame, but at least to have someone who could be responsible in the end, without consequences, obviously, because there are enough cases already where doctors without conscience have argued that if something goes wrong in the medical profession, it's just a black swan event. Anyway, so researchers attributed it to the natural human tendency to over-rely on the recommendations of decision support systems like AI. And this again is important. I mean, that's just obvious that this is the case, that this is why this happens. But the question is why this openness, this readiness to rely and even over-rely on this. And you could say it's because they don't want personal responsibility. But I think on a deeper level, it's not just about autonomous choice making, which is then given over. There's something much deeper. I think what AI as Google was already, it was already the case with Google search. It promised, it promised, or it promises objectivity, which the subject, the human subject, desires. And at the same time, it's not so much about alleviating yourself from your responsibility, but I think it's it is, and it's not so much. It's not even perhaps objectivity is maybe even a step further, where there's a certain functioning of the sort of quote unquote system of constellation that um, of a cybernetic system, if you like, that just simply uses signals. And the AI is a signal booster. So it helps the over relying on those recommendations is inherent to the logic of that system, to cybernetics, which is a signal a signal circuit that works with manipulation of signals. Imagine that you want to travel anywhere and you're unable to use Google Maps. Oh, wow, what a world that would be. Has anyone ever traveled without Google Maps? Certainly not in the history of mankind. That's never happened. Who are these people? Imagine you want to travel anywhere and you're unable to use Google Maps. The horror, the nightmare of not having Google Maps to hand. I'm not even that old, and I remember traveling all across the world without Google Maps and without the internet. In fact, without a phone in my pocket. That actually did happen not too long ago. But anyways, I mean, this is a co-author of a study, and he's an assistant professor at the Medical University of Silesia. I mean, we call it the Google Maps effect. Jesus Christ. I mean, the state of everything, I can't fathom how eroded everything already is. Oh, it's the Google Maps effect. Wow, that's a deep thought here. We try to get somewhere and it's impossible to use a regular map. It works very similarly. I mean, this whoever this is just has a Valley Girl accent, doesn't he or she? I don't know what Morrison for kind of names. Anyways. Oh God. Omar Ahmed, a consultant gastroenterologist at University College Hospital, London. By the way, founded by Jeremy Bentham. And Bentham, the name at least, was used by Karl Marx as a swear word in his private notebooks. So Bentham! Exclamation point when he was angry. Or something. And Bentham, you can still see his mummified body in the main library of University College London. And they have a hospital right next to that building. And so there, Mr. Ahmad, who wrote an editorial alongside the study, but was not involved in its research, tells Time that it's likely that exposure to AI weaken doctors' visual search habits and alerting gaze patterns, which are critical for detecting polyps. So this very modern disease that is cancer, Baudrillard has a few things to say on cancer that I won't go into now, but you can read up on that yourself, for example, in Simulacra and Simulation, is already dependent upon for its detection on pattern recognition. and then forwarding those signals. So obviously, so-called AI is the next step. In essence, dependence on AI detection could dull human pattern recognition, Ahmad says. He adds that regular use of AI could also reduce diagnostic confidence when AI assistance is withdrawn, or that the endoscopist's skill of maneuvering the colonoscope could be reduced. Not words I often read. In comments to the Science Media Center, Catherine Menon, principal lecturer at the University of Hertfordshire's Department of Computer Science, said, although de-skilling resulting from AI use has been raised as a theoretical risk in previous studies, this study is the first to present real-world data that might potentially indicate de-skilling arising from the use of AI in diagnostic colonoscopies. Menon raised concerns that over-reliance on AI could leave health practitioners at risk to technological compromise. Now, again, just basically spilling out the obvious. And I wonder, though, why that very obvious issue isn't already, why one has to do a study specifically on that. But I think we can be certain that so-called AI will be used ever more, and as all this does is so-called AI is working on data that are you know, an abyss, ultimately incoherent, really just bundles of impressions, to use this term from Hume. And also because AI, of course, does not have any genuine memory. I mean, it has. If you conflate data with memory, data storage with memory, then yes, it has memory. But it doesn't have memory in the sense of what it means to heal, what it means to be a human being, what it means to be sick, what it means to be ill, what it means to be dying, etc. Now, all of this should factor into a diagnosis. But if already everything has been reduced to pattern recognition, then we're already no longer dealing with medicine in any way that we can recognize it as such. We are in fact dealing with something quite different. We are dealing with pattern recognition for the sake of pattern recognition, for the sake of cutting out or basically burning out through, let's say, chemotherapy, signals in the body, which is already also seen as a cyber circuit system, to manipulate the signals in such a way that the signals that the body sends forth are better, again, in line with what is considered healthy. If you want to cure cancer, you don't increase the number of chemotherapies performed. You have to ask what cancer is and why it spreads so vehemently in modernity. If you recognized all early stages of cancer, that doesn't cure cancer and it doesn't kill cancer. One of the things that freaked me out the most when I moved to England more than 13 years ago now is that there were cancer runs in London. Let's kill cancer together. Let's kill cancer together and hold hands as we're killing cancer together. This is also the time when people like Richard Dawkins and others had the red buses in London proclaim, "Don't worry, there's probably no God." I mean, this is a hellscape if there ever was one. Speaking of dystopia is it is already here. Don't worry, there's no God. Let's kill cancer. The question what cancer is, how it spreads, why it spreads, and this is not even just a medical question. Yeah, it's not just a question of what kind of lifestyle do we have. This is a question that's deeply concerned with health in general. What you see here also, and this is something that, by the way, that Thomas will make very strong in his course on health, which you can enroll in now, by the way. So, this is a philosophy of health course, which starts exactly in 1 week. I should point out Saturday, the 6th of September is when we start. So head over there now and enroll. What Thomas will make very strong and discuss with you all when you join us next week is that health and virtue cannot be separated. I mean, they can be separated, but if you do, you lose on both ends. Both teloi suffer. And at the same time, health, as much as virtue, is to do with the contingent, with that which cannot be planned for. Now, what you see here, especially with AI, is an attempt to over average out and try to ensure that there cannot be any more contingencies. So, okay, yeah, other experts, of course, are more cautious. Continue reading here. So let me just point out again, I'm going to go over to the article again. Head over to the link to enroll is in the description of this video and also in the chat if you're watching this live. So head over there now and sign up for this course. I've always wanted someone to teach on this, and I'm very glad that Thomas is doing this. I asked him last year if he'd like to do it, so I'll just mention this. If you have time for the seminars, head over here and click on Philosophical Fellowship. I'm really glad that Thomas is doing this because he found in his reading of Plato and Aristotle on health that health is everywhere and that health is fundamental to their to enter metaphysics, to see beauty. It's fundamental for good and healthy ontology. And especially in the digital time, you're listening to this on YouTube and you're just hearing my voice. You may be someone who's perhaps terminally online. And we all spend hours and hours and hours online every single day. It is a disembodied experience. It is, in some sense, a for metaphysical realm. The internet, the digital space, however you want to refer to the virtual arena, etc. And especially in this time, regaining an understanding of the body and reconnecting body, mind, soul, spirit is crucial because such a, to separate the body from the soul as Descartes does is, well, is destructive. Okay, if you don't have time for the seminars, or maybe you live in a time zone that doesn't work for you, so we begin at 6 p.m. UK time, so that's 7 p.m. Central European time, and 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every seminar, again, which begins next week, is recorded, so you can listen back to the seminars. But if you really don't have time, just go to take the self-study, learn at your own pace, and improve your health and well-being in that manner. If you want to take additional private sessions with Thomas, then this is the third tier, but most people take the seminars. Okay, so let's continue reading this briefly, and then I'll head out again. Other experts are more cautious about drawing conclusions from a single study. Osmani, a professor of clinical AI and machine learning at Queen Mary University. Now that's also fascinating, There are already professorships of clinical AI. I mean, that's how you make a career, by jumping on any bandwagon. Anyways, again, London, of course, where else? Noted to SMC that the total number of colonoscopies, including both AI-assisted and non-AI-assisted ones, increased over the course of the study. The increased workload, as mine suggests, it could have led to clinician fatigue and poor detection rate. Alan Tucker, a professor of artificial intelligence at Brunel University of London, interesting, also noted that with AI assistance, clinician performance improved overall. Concerns about de-skilling due to automation bias, added Tucker to SMC, is not unique to AI systems and is a risk with the introduction of any new technology. I always, these ready-made statements, isn't that eerie? I find that so eerie, these ready-made statements. And the funny thing is, you don't have to tell someone like Professor Tucker to come up with a statement like this. Professor Tucker knows exactly what to say. It's a ready-made statement. And it's ready-made by, if you want to use Heidegger's term, by Gestell. Gestell produces these statements. The ethical question then is whether we trust AI over humans, said Tucker. Of course, ethics. We can't forget ethics, can we? There's always the ethical question. I think we've long left behind ethos, the dwelling ground fit for man. And so these are pseudo-ethical questions, which are basically always just about mitigating risk, either for investors or for the bottom line. Because in a behemoth of an institution as the NHS, no one is responsible for anything. The NHS being the National Health Service of the United Kingdom, of Britain or whatever. The ethical question, so the pseudo-ethical question then, is whether we trust AI over humans. Often we expect there to be a human overseeing all this AI decision making, but if the human experts are putting less effort into their own decisions as a result of introducing AI systems, this could be problematic. No kidding. So you see, I hope that what you can see is that how everything is framed. This is not an ethic. It's not an open question. This is not a question that invites the ethos to show itself. This is a question of how efficiency and sort of responsibility waiving can be produced. It's completely framed. Read this again on your own time. This is not an ethical question. This is not an ethical concern. This is how Gestell speaks. This is how enframing speaks, if you like. Without and I would add, I think of this as constellation rather than enframing or Gestell. And I think that what constellation does is it generates the simulacra of memory, but produces forgetting only. So it uses these simulated simulacra terms like ethical, because ethical touches us, because we are human, and as such, the ethos, which is the dwelling ground of the human, is always a concern to us. But this is a faint, fading copy of a copy of a copy of a copy that here speaks, that is here addressed. This is not simply about monitoring technology, says Ahmad. It's about navigating the of course. The complexities. Oh God. Oh, God. I mean, where are we in 10 years? Can you even talk to a doctor anymore? Can you even talk to anyone? Will there be any normal human being in any position? Or will it just be people like Ahmad and Tucker who say, "Oh, we're navigating the complexities, and we're very sorry to tell you that." Blah blah blah. Are there any human beings left anymore? Even really? Because this was written by an AI. This was not said by a human being. This is a statement. It's so bland, it's so empty and vacuous, and says absolutely nothing that it is already written by an AI. Ahmad and Tucker, etc., they all already speak like AI. Why? Because it's within the same frame. So it's about navigating the complexities of a new human AI clinical ecosystem. Perfect. Establishing safeguards is critical, he adds, suggesting that beyond this study, people may need to focus on preserving essential skills in a world where AI becomes ubiquitous. I mean, so again, this is a done deal. AI becoming ubiquitous, that's all, that's done. That won't, that will happen. Yeah? Says Ahmad. Says Ahmad. I mean, read this. Says Ahmad. Even just the wording here. This is not simply says Ahmad. This is not a statement. This is not an opinion. This is the written word. This is the word from God. Almost. This is prophecy. This is prophecy. So we just have to navigate those complexities as if this just all falls from the sky. And now it's not. Did you notice anything in the article about patience? Did you notice any of those quote unquote medical experts talk about the patients, the suffering, waiting human beings? No, no one talked about the patients. It was all just about pattern recognition and who could outperform whom. And now those complexities means chaos in that respect. You see, it's not really complexity in this. Oh, it's really difficult. Oh, we need more experts. No, this is what he talks about is what Heidegger refers to as the an anarchy of catastrophes. It's complete chaos. Chaos is what the Italians would call casino. Ein Durcheinander, tohu wa bohu. So the AI is coming, and it's going to be quote unquote helping detect pattern, by pattern recognition, disease and illness. And it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem. I mean, have you been to an NHS clinic? If you call that an ecosystem, speaking about a broken ecosystem that's completely destroyed and uh, vandalized and and environmentally degraded. So this is not just it's prophecy, but it's also already written fact of what the future will bring. There will be a new human AI clinical ecosystem. That's done, and it's all apparently happening in London for a certain reason. And so all that needs to happen is that preserving essential skills in a world where AI becomes ubiquitous. What are those essential skills? Pattern recognition is that the essential skill? I wonder. So it's the exact opposite of how we have to think about health. Again, not once were patients even mentioned. Not once was anything else. Was health considered in this article, or of course not in this study? I mean, this is just this is a headline. You see, I think this graphic here is very telling. Also by Getty Images, of course. Who else? So someone came up with this here. The AI doesn't have ears to hear, and it doesn't have a mouth to say or speak anything. It doesn't have eyes to see. It doesn't have a heart. It doesn't have hands. How do we access the world? With our hands. This is such a misguiding, on purpose misguiding graphic here that but it's Getty Images. What else do you expect? So I mean, in this, desolate age, we have to ponder what health is and have to understand that health and virtue go together. You can't separate the two, and that health is fundamental to accessing the genuine metaphysical, not this form metaphysical realm of the internet. And what we're also going to discuss at the course, which begins next week, is how quantification can be meaningful and, in a good sense, useful if it bows to and goes together with quality, which must come first. So, I'd like to invite you once more to join the course. Link to enroll is in the description of this video. Share this video with anyone who's interested in AI, in health, in philosophy in general, in Plato and Aristotle. And I hope to see you all at the course next week. Thank you. Good night.